Out of everyone in the Star Wars lore, it appears as if Anakin Skywalker and Lord Vader received the most criticism about their lightsaber construction. Anakin Skywalker's first lightsaber would eventually be destroyed on Geonosis. However, once the Clone Wars broke out, his mentality shifted drastically. He became obsessed with defeating Dooku, and became obsessed with his own power. Anakin had finally met a force that he could not overcome, and more than that, he was utterly embarrassed. Not to mention the Clone Wars had just broken out. Anakin Skywalker took to the construction of his second lightsaber with a sense of vengeance that he had lacked before. This greatly worried not only Obi-Wan Kenobi, but also the Jedi Council. However, they let it slide, as Anakin revealed the design for his next lightsaber. As Yoda would put it, Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber was a weapon in its truest sense. The larger pommel and grip allowed for more leverage and mobility. This was not a tool to defend the innocent, and to be used to maintain peace. Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber was a weapon. To make things even worse though, once Anakin's lightsaber was taken from him from Kenobi after their duel on Mustafar, he himself would later construct his Sith lightsaber using the schematics of his master Palpatine's lightsaber. However, in the end, when he presented his brand new constructed lightsaber to his master, Palpatine was utterly disappointed. He had seen that the dark side had corrupted Vader, but nowhere near as deeply as Palpatine had hoped that it would, as the lightsaber that he presented, Palpatine described as a more twisted version of Anakin's lightsaber. This is not what he wanted. He needed his apprentice to abandon Anakin and the Jedi path entirely, and the fact that Vader's lightsaber was eerily similar to Anakin's was proof that deep down, Vader had not destroyed the Jedi. But these are opinions from Jedi Masters and Sith Emperors. But what of Luke? What were Luke Skywalker's opinions on his father's lightsaber? Well, Luke did actually have several criticisms that may shock you, but they are coming far more from an emotional state than the state of an entire order. The Jedi didn't like Anakin's lightsaber because they believed it was a weapon, and the Sith didn't like Anakin's lightsaber because they believed it was echoes of a Jedi. But what about Luke? Well, greetings, acolytes of the Force, and let's answer that question today. The weapon that Luke Skywalker would wield for several years, his father's. Admittedly in Star Wars canon, he states that he feels a strong connection to it. When he switches to the yellow lightsaber crystal in the comic series, he states that the connection to the crystal is strong, but nowhere near as strong as the lightsaber crystal that his father had imbued upon. He had felt as if it was a familial bond, echoes of Anakin, echoes of Luke's true father, and therefore, the lightsaber of Skywalker and Luke went very well together. The Kyber crystal within the Skywalker legacy blade had embraced Luke fully, but Luke himself did not grasp the totality of who his father was, or more importantly, what he had become. It was after the duel on Bespin in Cloud City where Luke Skywalker would have a drastic shift mentally on the lightsaber of Anakin Skywalker. Following his duel with Vader, we find Luke in the Millennium Falcon in the comics. He is greatly disturbed by what he has learned. He knows that he cannot trust Vader, and yet, he senses familiarity within him. Luke admits that there is something deep down that is confirming to him that what Vader says is true. This enrages him for several reasons. Mainly though, his ire is directed more towards his Jedi Masters in Yoda and Ben Kenobi. Luke is extremely frustrated that they withheld the truth from him. Luke screams out, begging for Kenobi or Yoda to answer his cries. He is completely engulfed with the dark side, anger, and fear. Fear of what he can become. Fear of what happened to his father. The lightsaber that he had felt such a strong connection to in Anakin had been corrupted. That very feeling of familiarity was now poisoning his mind. Luke would even eventually return to Cloud City, where he would briefly search for the lightsaber, and it was here where Luke would tell himself that he would become something different. He would not let the power of the Force and the dark side corrupt him like it had his father, and he even decided to take a step away from the rebellion. Instead, Luke sensed that if he continued on this path, that it would lead him to the dark side, just as it had Anakin, and because of that, he needed to destroy that part of himself, deciding to leave the lightsaber behind, even though he searched for it for quite some time. It was this active shift in mentality that breaks Luke Skywalker away from the legacy of Anakin, something that he had done very intentionally. It is only once Luke meets the expert on Kyber crystals in Dr. Kuata on the world of Christophsis that the full truth is revealed to him. Dr. Kuwata explains that a Jedi and their lightsaber crystal will work in tandem with one another as a single unit. Luke doesn't even have to think. The Kyber crystal is connected to him, his own presence in the Force, and his very stance. The Kyber crystal is an extension of the Jedi's will. Luke confirms that he has felt something similar to this before with the lightsaber of Anakin, that it was close, but not quite exactly what the Doctor was explaining. Luke did also note, though, that the yellow lightsaber that he was wielding was farther away than what he had felt in the connection to his father's blade. But it is only once Dr. Kuwata gifts Luke Skywalker a clear Kyber crystal, and Luke begins to meditate upon it, that something brilliant happens. When Luke meditates on this clear crystal, finally, Yoda answers his calls. And although Luke is extremely frustrated with his Jedi Master, Yoda confirms that he is on the right path, a path that will separate himself from the Jedi of the classic Republic era, the Jedi that were toppled by the return of the Sith, and that Luke was on a path to become something more, not just learning from the Jedi of old, but from many Force-based organizations. Luke was slowly becoming the next generation of the Jedi, and Yoda knew this. And it was then where the clear Kyber crystal imbued green, a gift from Yoda himself, and the connection between Luke and the Jedi Order. Past this, Luke Skywalker would use the journals of old Ben Kenobi to construct his lightsaber hilt, using the echoes of the past and the Jedi that had remained faithful. In the end, the lightsaber that Luke constructed was exceptionally unique, pieces of the old Jedi Order, and pieces of himself. It had the hilt of old Ben Kenobi, and a design very similar to his, the coloration of Yoda's green lightsaber, signifying a Jedi consular. And yet, Luke had become something new, a new version of the Jedi, a more righteous version of the Jedi. And although he held great reverence and respect to his father's lightsaber, he did not feel the need to actively seek it out ever. He had gone down a different path. Those Jedi were gone. The mistakes of Anakin Skywalker were over, and although he would never deny the connection that he had with Anakin's crystal, it was never meant to be his. But anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on Luke Skywalker's opinions on Anakin's lightsaber? What are your thoughts on why he actively grew to dislike it and viewed it as a representation of the wrong path, and that by casting it away, Luke decided to enter a path of his own as the new generation of the Jedi Order? Do you believe that this was a wise decision, or do you believe that Luke should have stayed on Cloud City and gained his father's lightsaber one more time? As always, my friends and acolytes, thank you so much for visiting the channel today, and as always, may the Force be with you.